Hey, transformational prevention again. Oh my. I know you love me, that's so comforting. Won't choose, you want me, take my hand and know me better. I know you love me, that's so comforting. Won't choose, you want me, take my hand and know me better. I know you love me, that's so comforting. But we are stuck except you take my hand and know me better. Hey, know me better, love me better. Hey, treat me better, love me better. It's the Transformational Parenteen Show with MUTE OLORI.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Transformational Parenting Show with MUTE OLORI. Today we're looking at a very thought-provoking topic, a very significant topic, that is parenting and childhood trauma. We aim to explore the intricate connection between past experiences and present parenting, understanding how childhood trauma can influence our approach as parents. Joining me today is a guest who is an expert in childhood trauma and will be sharing her experiences in this intricate and delicate area of the conversation today. And together, we hope to illuminate the path towards healing, forgiveness, and resilience. I'll be right back.
Hey, transformational prevention again. Oh my. I know you love me, that's so comforting. Won't choose, you want me, take my hand and know me better. I know you love me, that's so comforting. Won't choose, you want me, take my hand and know me better. I know you love me, that's so comforting. But we are stuck except you take my hand and know me better. Hey, know me better, love me better. Hey, treat me better, love me better. It's the Transformational Parenteen Show with MUTE OLORI.
All right, welcome back. My guest today is Madam ENE EDE, an inclusion and diversity strategist, a survivor of multiple incidents of violence, child bride, serial monogamy, and brutal attack on and killing of her only biological child. Thank you very much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. How does childhood trauma shape the way an individual approaches parenting? And what are some of the common challenges parents can face from the history of their trauma?
You know, thank you for this opportunity to speak on this area, because people live in denial. They try to externalize the challenge and they are not able to get around the solution naturally. Well, when I mean naturally is that we are used to trying to hide information. We are used to not looking at the past, relating it to the present and projecting it to the future. One, as a lived experience, having gone through series of trauma before age 9, as somebody involved in child marriage, it was when one of the young women, Irene Uga, I'm so grateful to her. Unfortunately, Nigeria couldn't utilize her expertise here. She's now in Canada with her family. I hope too that Nigeria will look over there in Canada and bring her closer in terms of patronizing her services, because she's so endowed. She was the very first person that identified the impact of child trauma on me, on my life, when my son was brutally killed. So there were a lot of things people were saying, certain ways that I was reacting, following up with the case, and she said the trauma she suffered as a child, it has not been dealt with. And I sat back and I said, okay. Then a second person I met, Dr. Iwoware, you need to interview him. Dr. James Iwowari, is the first energy therapist in Africa, a certified energy therapist, energy trauma therapist. Is unique, not a talking, just talking type, practical that dissolves trauma. When he met me and I was talking to somebody, he said, hey, this is what parents miss. I'm glad that you know it, and I'm glad that you have different constituencies. You'll be able to influence them. What are the things? Let me give you an example of myself. I was growing up, I was very close to males. I had only one girlfriend, and that created anxiety in my father. My father would say, look, the two male organs are not friends. He was just speaking in coded language. What does a little girl, because my mind was not matured to understand that. And as a result of that, my father gave me out in marriage. So, as a result of, before my 9th birthday.
Your father gave you out to marriage
Yes.
before your 9th birthday?
Yes.
Simply because you were too close to your girlfriend and
I had only one girlfriend, and I have friends in my class in primary school who are just young people. I forgot to send you the photograph. Young, innocent, progressive people, children, pupils in primary school. And when that happened, as I was growing up, even up till now, a lot of people will still want to blackmail me to say, you are still nursing grudges against your dead father. No, I'm just making a strong reference for parents to understand that, one, haven't given me out in marriage and truncated my progress somehow. It slowed down my progress. Well, by the time I got to secondary school, went to NCE, and before navigating to go for my first degree, it slowed the progress. I was on a high speed progressively, but because of the anxiety too, because of the trauma he too acquired from his parents. Because I remember my mother telling me that they said, oh, she's too pretty to go to school. She should marry and have fine children like herself. So do you see the transgenerational trauma transfer? My mother suffered it. She had very little resistance towards my father because of the cultural stronghold. So she accepted, she struggled, she tried everything, it didn't work. My father insisted he had his way. And for me, growing up, and even after going to school, I was closer to my mother because I saw my father with a little bit of apprehension. I saw him with some kind of what they call nostalgia. I was just thinking, this man doesn't quite like me. And there was nobody to explain to me sufficiently. That's why you see, once it has happened, it's very important for you to be able to explain. There wasn't much explanation to say, your father is not really your enemy. He's not enemy of progress. It's not that he truncated your progress deliberately or depriving you of your childhood, your rich childhood. So I'm a survivor of stolen childhood. And it's very difficult to make up. But you can resolve it while alive. Before my father died, I wish we were able to sit down and have the conversation. So most parents are not able to resolve it. There are situations some grandparents, grandchildren, children are able to sit down. I've seen a family that, okay, you know why? We are sorry. We gave you out in marriage in error. And we know that it has affected you in so many ways. And you have asked, how does it play out? One of it is that growing up, once a relationship is getting to a level of being mutual, being intimate, my reaction is terrible. I remember when I saw Orogun, it approached my uncle and said, this your daughter is suffering he has a psychological problem that need to be dealt with. She's very friendly with men, but when it comes to advances towards mutual friendship or
a deeper
friendship beyond platonic,
Yeah.
the reaction is aggression. So is that childhood, oh, I was given to an old man. You saw what I sent to you? Oh, when you remember that, it triggered something behind you, and the whole of your, and this is somebody you've been playing with, you are joking, simply because he said, I like you, want to marry you. The anger is excessive. But because the person too, not too many people are knowledgeable. So you begin to attract enmity to yourself. They begin to call you names, they begin to stigmatize you. Parents were not able to deal with it, society is not able to deal with it. The therapists who have, that most of them are talking therapists.
How old was your the
The
man?
husband,
Yes.
the man. Well, he was a husband, but me, I wasn't a wife because he was matured
Definitely.
enough to be a husband, but I was not matured enough to be a wife. 3 times my age, so he should be in his early 40s, or so you can see the age gap. Even the size alone. If you look at my picture, smart, I didn't have, because the structure of my mother's was like, they had the Fulani kind of structure, and that was how I was growing. So you can look at a man, you are looking, most women will tell you they want to look up to their husband, but not in this case. I saw him with the eye of an oppressor. I saw him as somebody who is a rapist. But that is not what he is in actual sense, given the arrangement. So you see the complications. His family couldn't resolve it. He couldn't resolve it. I had to run out of that marriage. I ran out of that marriage and went to school. And what was the consequence? Part of the consequence, my mother was to be chased out of her marriage. And her family was not going to accept her. So do you see the chain reaction? That is why it's very important for experts to help families minimizing stigma and the psychological damage it has done. Because some people, when they talk about it, it's like they have been stripped naked psychologically. When I used to talk about my late son, would say, I don't like you to talk about this. So they fear. They are touching some spot.
That society
would not want to
stigmatize
go.
and would not sympathize
But it
or
is killing
empathize
people.
with the person.
Yeah, you need empathy. And you need to resolve it so that you are fully grown. Until recently, when I met Dr. James Iwowari, that we started having therapy sessions. I had series of therapy. It didn't resolve. So you can imagine her, look at the age, that childhood trauma
At
that has
9.
impacted other persons
Yeah.
is being resolved now at 60 plus. Do you see the damage? Emotional hurt. Friends that you have resisted aggressively, their love advances. You even call them names. You see them with aid of people who are exploitative, people who are perpetrators.
Because anytime they offer to any favor, you think
You
that
are so-
that
Yes.
memory triggers you to
Yes.
say, this person is an enemy, he
Do you-
needs something from me.
My sister, do you know I have a daughter from River, nice girl. She's having a little challenge now, a medical doctor, but she asked one of her friends, what business do you have collecting gift from any man? Because all her life, she only collected gift from her husband, from her father. So outside that, she's afraid. She's suspicious. So it's a problem. Because the figure, she has a loving figure that she knows that nothing will happen. But the man's advice, she's seen that is coded. It could result into anything. And she doesn't want to get involved. You see? I keep telling her, I spoke with her yesterday, I said, you won't do that. We need to sit down. So we'll have a date to speak tomorrow.
Now, let's look at how can a parent, what are some of the triggers or pointers to saying, look, I am parenting from a place of
weakness,
trauma, from, because like you said, people don't talk about it.
No,
people
they don't want to
But
talk
how do
about
I identify that it's my childhood trauma that is affecting me right now?
A story was told of a girl that suddenly there are 3 girls in their family, and suddenly she started her father was always beating her mother. And she felt helpless. She couldn't support her mother. And she would always be quiet and cry and go to the room and cry. So trauma was building up. So at some point, she started taking weed. That's marijuana. She wanted to get high and deal with the father. Progressively, the father should have known that it was happening. I remember somebody shared recently and said, look, my daughter is you know, when people go through trauma, they abuse everything. Some can abuse substance, others who abuse food. So my daughter takes too much chocolate. Then when I began to interview the person, and I realized that it was trauma that was building and building towards depression, the father, it was when I told him, I said, how much love do you show the wife? By the time I understand the emotional connection between him and the wife, and what the girl feels that is depriving her mother of, and what happened. In this case, it was issue of sex selection. And the person now got somebody who gave him a boy, and he was, more or less, he had abandoned this family. So the girl in particular feels so angry. And how will he do? When you tell her, when will you get married? For those who are matured, in our client, you ask, you say, no, I don't think I would want to be interested in marriage.
So when someone says something like that, you need to find out.
You need to find out what, if it means taking the person to a confidant. Because sometimes she will not feel confident enough to tell you. But like this girl, I also that the girl said, this other girl, I said, like, because of what my father has been doing to my mother, and I didn't feel confident. I feel like it's time for me to do this and be empowered, be bold to stand against him, stand up to him. I remember my son told me something. I was crying. And he said, Mommy, why are you crying? It was just 5 years. I said, no, I'm not crying. And I cleaned the tears. I wiped it. I was sobbing. And I cleaned the tears. He said, don't worry. Is it because of what my father did to you? When I grow up, I'll take good care of you.
Wow.
You think it's small, it's a spirit. Even children, when you conceive them, that's why I say, be careful. Men who abuse their children, who abuse their wives, or wives who call their husbands names, or families that are not in harmony, it affects the unborn child. When the child is born, this trauma is trapped in his or her tissue. It doesn't just come like that. When you trace it, when you trace the family history, you see they'll tell you that they are family of abusers. It's an unhealed trauma. Now you are stigmatizing them, but the society is the cause, and negligence. All over when you see people, it doesn't just happen. And it's not about going to church or going to Babalawo to deliver the person. You have to go through proper process.
Wow. Wow, wow. Yes. I told you earlier that today's conversation is going to be very thought-provoking. Honestly, I'm hearing things that I would never really associate with causes for trauma and its related effects. Let's take a short break while you're thinking of yours. I'll be right back. Please don't go anywhere.
You want me, take my hand and know me better. I know you love me, that's so comforting. Won't choose, you want me, take my hand and know me better. I know you love me, that's so comforting. But we are stuck to accept you, take my hand and know me better. Hey, know me better, love me better. Hey, take me better, love me better.
Welcome back. It's still the Transformational Parenting Show, and we are talking about childhood trauma and parenting. My question is, how would people deal with it? But I want you to use your life experience to tell us.
You see, I'm happy you talk about transformational parenting. You see, I remember a friend of mine told me something that in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, parents don't instruct children, they discipline them. You need a combination of the two. Yes, they bring the Bible, oh, spare the rod and you spoil the child. And other ones that other religions and other faiths use. When you are dealing with children, the process like you talked about, if you make it conversational and you make your children your friends, when you have friends, they will talk to you. Bring them to your level and begin to talk to them. I remember I was talking to a girl recently. I realized that 2 girls were rebellious. And I said, so what do you expect from us as adults? I realized that our expectations are too high. And their own expectations are, they are suspicious. They're intergenerational suspicion. So that is there on its own. Your children will be suspecting you. I've seen children tell their parents that my son once told me that, I'm not very sure, I'm suspicious. I'm not sure you are my real mother. I say, see, that's yes. Say this here, see this sign. I say, okay, I now understand. So that suspicion can come. And how do you trace it? How do you trace this line now? We talked about the healing support you need to give them. You need to help them with mind reconstruction. Sit down as friends. Come and tell me, what challenge do you have with me? Are we okay? Parents hardly have that conversation. Even if it is that a child is not doing well in school, or a child is a bit rebellious, or a child is abusing food, or a daughter said, a matured girl rejecting all the suitors and looking for excuses, looking for an angel that you will not have to marry. On both sides, those are enough signs for you to know that
you must have parented from a place.
Exactly, a place of weakness.
Oh my God.
So if you look at that, is then you begin to persuade this person. It's not about force. Don't take the person to a pastor for deliverance, or take him to the imam to say, please, this one has a spiritual problem. He will scatter everything. He will never be able.
Is it okay for us to be vulnerable to our children? Is it okay to tell them these things?
Because you have to acknowledge your weaknesses.
Sometimes we feel that if we tell them, they will look at us from another point of view, and it's too shameful to talk about.
You have to do that. You know why? Like, I remember my son asked me, Mom, the kind of person you are, how did you stoop that low to go and marry my father? I said, you see, your father is generous, is my blood relation, fourth generation cousin, they man, and all that. So he had this disposition. He said, so you didn't study the person well. I said, I'm very sorry. He said, I don't think I want to marry. I'm not happy that, look at what you went through. I said, no, there are sweet marriages. And I give him example, and we smile, we discuss. Some other parents say, how dare you ask me this question? When they say, look, I should put an embargo on talking about my childhood experience, I say it's important for old people to learn from. So even though it explains, we are still human beings. We are still in flesh. So if we don't want to accept our vulnerability, it's the reality, it is there. It's the system, it's the people around us. We are not going to externalize the blame, but we're also going to be able to deal with it squarely. Even perpetrators, SGVB, like when they say, unite against, Dr. James kept telling the Minister of Women Affairs, and others say, unite, invest, and stop SGVB. What are we doing to vulnerable the perpetrators? If they acknowledge that they are perpetrators, okay, let's have a conversation.
That's a healing process.
It's a healing process. It will bring closure, and it will stop turning these persons into multiple or serial perpetrators. So we must be a little bit restrained in terms of, we must be more realistic in dealing with it, because the rigidity will not help us. Like women who are frigid in marriage. Somebody will say, oh, something. I used to have that challenge as a full-time housewife. Say, why are you not interested in male and female relationship? That is part of servicing the marriage. It's a core thing for me. I'm suspecting you, something must be wrong. Nothing is wrong.
It could be a trauma.
Yes, it's a trauma.
Each time there's that.
Because you are exposed to the male organ prematurely. For you, it's a weapon. For you, it's atomic energy. For you, it is hurtful. It's not something pleasurable. You are not seeing love in it. They call it love making. But you are seeing aggression. You are seeing oppressor. You are seeing. So for that childhood, this thing couldn't leave me. It's a major loss on my part.
How do we start the process of healing? Because if we don't heal,
yes,
like we have identified, we'll keep passing this thing from one generation to another. Sometimes it's not even conversation.
Yes.
But, behaviorally, we're passing something.
You are. Very seriously. It could be one comment.
How do we heal?
Yes.
How do we
So healing is very important. The healing now is to speak out, to seek help from qualified people who are discreet, not somebody that will go and expose you. Oh, this is what has happened. So if we seek help, knowledge from qualified people, like I told you, one person that I've seen that does distinctive energy therapy, trauma energy therapy, drugless. Let me give you an example. Because of the trauma I've been going through, sometimes my blood pressure could drop as low as 63/43. It's a dead zone. And part of what I learned from Dr. Dem, you drink water, and one thing you do, he taught me a few practical things that you do, because it's in the tissue.
It is.
When it delays so much, it has entered into your tissue. It's part of your blood. So it's not something you wish away. It's not something you pray away. It's not something you drink away. Sex is not enough to take it off from you. Dressing to kill is not enough to take it from you. It's to resolve it procedurally. Many of the ways we behave at level of politicians, the followership, the church, the mosques, traditional rulers, media, all of us are traumatized.
We're going to do a part 2 of this, because there's a conversation I need to have with you, and how you're dealing with the loss of your child.
I'll be glad to
You didn't just
that.
lose a child was brutally
The only child I waited for
murdered.
7 years to have.
We'll have that conversation.
Yes,
We'll
grieving.
definitely have you
I'll
again.
give you a book on grieving.
We'll definitely have you
Thank
again.
you so much.
Wow. It's just time, but we're definitely going to be talking about this issue again and again. It's a lot. If you don't heal, you'll keep passing the results and the effect of trauma from one generation to another. Let the process begin, and it begins with having the conversation. Talk, speak out. I'll see you next time.
Take my hand and know me better. I know you love me. That's so comforting. Won't choose you want me. Take my hand and know me better. I know you love me. That's so comforting. But we are stuck except you take my hand and know me better. Hey, know me better, love me better. Hey, treat me better, love me better. It's the Transformational Parenteen Show with MUTE Olori.